Module 3. Travel time. Unit 3.1. Exercise 1, page 68. Exercise 2, page 68.
A fair to go cuckoo about. We moved to the countryside to enjoy life at a slower pace. But from the moment Susan took up pottery, my quiet life seemed to drift out of control. Suddenly, the house was full of empty vases and unused dishes, each one requiring my seal of approval before being put in place on newly built shelves. Although I appreciated the fact that my wife had discovered a hidden talent, it was becoming increasingly obvious that we had to find some use for her creations before we ran out of space completely. Susan's brightly coloured ceramic plates and dishes made ideal gifts, but birthdays and special occasions didn't come around often enough to save us. So I was delighted when she suggested renting a stall at a local craft fair. We live a few miles from the village of Downton near Salisbury in Wiltshire. It's a lovely, quiet village on the River Avon that's full of strange customs and old traditions, such as the cuckoo fair at the beginning of spring. Since the 16th century, people have been coming from miles around to marvel at this medieval festival. These days, around 20,000 people enjoy live entertainment from brass bands, street performers, and Morris dancers. For those of us who were brought up in the city, it seems like a lot of quaint countryside fun. But the fair also has about 250 stalls, selling handmade crafts and local produce. And that's why Susan and I set off for Downton in the early hours of the morning. Even at 6 a.m., Downton was a hive of activity. As the sun crept across the village, our fellow stallholders were laying out their wares on stalls that lined Downton's main street, just as they'd done hundreds of years ago. However, this was an entirely new experience for Susan, and she was strangely silent as she arranged and rearranged her display. For Susan, this was far more than an opportunity to make some money from surplus handicrafts. She was like an artist preparing for her first public exhibition, and her critics would have to show their approval by parting with some cash if the day was going to end well. As a crowd slowly formed, the homemade honey on the stall next to ours seemed to be selling well. The old couple who'd produced this tempting treat offered Susan a supportive smile, but by mid-morning we were still waiting to make our first sale. A few potential customers hesitantly asked about the prices, but most were too distracted by the hustle and bustle to make a purchase. I confess that my own attention had started to wander when I suddenly heard the wild, enthusiastic shrieks of a delighted American tourist. I turned to find a group of elderly ladies gazing at Susan's display as though they had just discovered buried treasure. They were generous in their praise and eager to hand over their money for as many bargains as they could carry. The attention drew in yet more customers, and we were soon struggling to cope. By the early afternoon, we had nothing left to sell, and we were finally free to explore the rest of the cuckoo fair. The children dancing around the maypole looked adorable as they weaved around each other in their bright costumes. Then we followed a street procession to the crowning of the Cuckoo Princess. Although I can't say either of us fully understood the significance of this ancient ceremony, we both applauded. We wanted to prolong the fun, but it was time to go. As I drove home with my own Cuckoo Princess asleep in the passenger seat, I wondered whether this would be a regular feature of our quiet country life. For all the satisfaction the day had brought, I certainly hoped so.
Unit 3.2, Exercise 7, page 71.
What a lovely picture! I can see some young girls and women wearing crisp white cotton dresses and brightly coloured headscarves. It appears as though they are dancing. It is a beautiful spring day, and they seem very happy being out in the bright sunshine.
Unit 3.3, Exercise 2B, page 72.
Tsingy-Bemaraha National Park. Botanist Nick Lever talks about a scientific expedition to one of the world's most remote and biodiverse nature reserves.
Botany may not be regarded by many as the most exciting of careers, but I can honestly say that I have never found it anything but enthralling. I have had the great fortune to travel virtually the entire world for my job looking for plant species which may prove useful to the pharmaceutical industry. Last year, my research took me to Madagascar, one of the most beautiful and fascinating countries I have ever had the good fortune to visit. Madagascar is an island about the size of France off the southeast coast of Africa. It is a biologist's dream, because it is home to more than 250,000 species. What is more, an estimated 80% of these are found nowhere else on Earth. The reason that Madagascar has such a treasure trove of unique species is that its animal and plant life have been evolving in isolation for millions of years. It is estimated that Madagascar broke away from the Indian subcontinent somewhere between 80 and 100 million years ago, making it the world's oldest island. With such a tremendous collection of species under its care, the Madagascan government has set aside about 50 areas of special interest as national parks. One of the most beautiful is the Tsingy-Bemaraha National Park, which is located in the northwest of the island. Tsingy consists of deciduous forests and mangrove swamps sitting on towering, jagged limestone rocks. Below ground, there is an enormous network of caves, rivers and streams. There are bird, reptile, lemur and frog species in the park which are not found anywhere else on the island. The aye, the world's largest nocturnal primate, lives there too. It has a very odd appearance, luminous, beady eyes and a very long middle finger on both its hands. It was in this truly incredible wildlife habitat that I gathered the majority of my plant samples. Getting to many of the plants in Tsingy can be a struggle because of the terrain. You have to be prepared to climb and scramble over this wonderful rocky landscape. The limestone pinnacles soar above 150 feet in some places. The plants cling precariously to the sharp peaks and towering cliffs. Those on the tops of the rocks have had to adapt to extreme conditions, burning heat and long periods of drought, so they do not have leaves. but instead are covered in thorns which help them limit their water loss. On the other hand, those on the canyon floor have water but live in shadow. The lack of light means they have to stretch up towards the sky to grasp whatever sunlight they can, and so they have unusually long stems and branches. To date, we botanists have counted roughly 650 plant species in Tsingy. Most of these have not been investigated, but research in laboratories, like the one I work in, will hopefully discover if any are of medicinal value. I have high hopes. Madagascar is home to the rosy periwinkle, which is used to treat some cancers and also diabetes. I suspect there are many more Madagascar plants with potential disease-curing properties.
Unit 3.4, Exercise 10, page 75.
Well, hello, Sue. I hadn't realised you were back from your holidays. How was it?
Oh, Mark, it was lovely. What about you? You just got back too, didn't you?
Oh my, don't even talk about it. Almost everything that could go wrong did. It was an absolute total disaster.
Goodness, what happened?
Well, to begin with, the weather was awful. I mean, seriously, it rained the whole time.
What was your hotel like?
Noisy and dirty. And the restaurant?
The one in the hotel?
Yes. The food was really cheap.
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yes, but they overcharged us. Twice.
Oh my. Do I dare ask about the nightlife?
All the cafes were far too crowded for my liking. I guess I'm too old for that sort of thing.
Nonsense. Next time you'll have to come away with me.
Tell me about it.
Well, you know I went to Barbados.
Yes?
Well, we didn't go to the usual touristy places. Our hotel was off the beaten track.
Was it nice?
Very. It was nice and cosy and very good value for money. Oh, and the scenery around it was incredible.
I'm jealous. I'm definitely coming away with you next year.
Unit 3.5, Exercise 7, page 77.
Been there, done that. A fictional heaven. Shangri-La is an imaginary location described in the novel Lost Horizon by British author James Hilton. It is a tranquil haven in the Tibetan mountains, a place which casts a spell on all who live there. Today, the word Shangri-La is synonymous with a place of complete and utter bliss, delight and peace, an earthly utopia. Robert Kwok, founder of Asia's leading luxury hotel group, the Shangri-La Group of Hotels and Resorts, drew inspiration for his company's name from Lost Horizon.
A service in high demand. In the world's largest cities, the cheapest, fastest and most efficient way to move around is often by underground. This is certainly true in Tokyo, a city of some 13 million people and home to the busiest underground system in the world. Every year, around 3 billion passenger journeys are taken on the Tokyo subway. Unsurprisingly, given such numbers, travel conditions during peak hours can be extremely uncomfortable. Some subway cars are filled to 160% of capacity during rush hour.
wildlife in danger. The magnificent paradise forests of Southeast Asia, comprising rainforests, swamp forests, coastal and mangrove forests, are home to an extraordinary diversity of species and hundreds of indigenous cultures. Tragically, these forests are being logged at a rate unequaled anywhere else on Earth. The Sumatran tiger and the world's largest flower, the 1-meter-wide Rafflesia, are threatened. Similarly, more than 1,000 languages spoken by the people who call these forests home could vanish.
A great monument of civilization. The Acropolis of Athens is the most famous acropolis in the world. A flat-topped rock in the middle of the city, rising 150 meters above sea level, the Acropolis has been a place of importance for thousands of years. It has several famous buildings on top of its summit, the most notable being the Parthenon, a temple erected in the 6th century BC to honor the Greek goddess Athena. The Acropolis is a magnificent sight, a true testament to the glory that was ancient Greece.
Exploring the past. York is a beautiful medieval city, and for the last 13 years, Brian Larkin has been taking visitors on a unique walking tour around it. His tour is different because, he says, he wants to give people an understanding of how ordinary people really lived in the past. As he takes them down some of York's darkest side streets and alleyways, Brian gives visitors a running commentary on what life was like without the benefits of electricity or modern plumbing.
A nature lover's delight. Spectacular mountain ranges, breathtaking scenery, and abundant wildlife make Nepal one of the most popular travel destinations for those who love the outdoors. Home to the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, Nepal's topography soars from 70 meters to 8,848 meters above sea level. Wildlife like tigers, rhinos, monkeys, bears, and leopards roam Nepal's forests, grasslands, and deserts. 10% of the world's bird species can be found flying in the skies of this beautiful country.
Imperial Beginnings. The Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia, is the largest art gallery in the world, with over 3 million works ranging from Michelangelo to Matisse. The collections are displayed in a vast complex of 6 buildings, including the Winter Palace, the official residence of the Russian Tsars. The Hermitage collection began as the private collection of the Empress Catherine the Great and was substantially expanded by succeeding Tsars, as well as the Soviet state, into the superb collection it is today.
Unit 3.6, Exercise 3, page 78. Peter.
Another city break? I wouldn't bother. The whole idea of taking a holiday is getting away from it all. For me, nothing compares to a camping holiday. I wouldn't miss the opportunity of being close to nature for the world. Staying in a tent, sleeping under the stars, lying on exotic beaches, and swimming in crystal clear waters are the perfect ingredients for an ideal holiday.
Anne.
Culture exploration is a must when I travel abroad. I'm particularly interested in ancient architecture, so I prefer staying in historic cities. Last year I went to Prague. Just walking along the busy streets in the old town and visiting Gothic temples and art galleries was amazing. If you've never been there yet, it's well worth a visit.
John.
Some of my friends absolutely love going travelling with a rucksack and staying at hostels, but backpacking is just not my cup of tea. I'm a fan of the urban lifestyle, and I just can't do without my comforts. When on holiday, I always stay in a top-class hotel. The perfect evening out consists of a visit to a superb theatre and then dinner in a stylish restaurant. And before I leave my holiday destination, I make sure I've visited all the trendy shops in the area to buy gifts for family and friends.
Unit 3.7, Exercise 3, page 80. Speaker 1.
My favourite type of holiday is a beach holiday because I love relaxing by the sea and sunbathing. I also love swimming and water sports, so it's ideal for me. To my mind, you can't beat a beach holiday for relaxation. I know I feel completely relaxed after I spent 2 weeks in the sun and got myself a good suntan. Sun, sand and sea. That's all I need every time.
Speaker 2.
I love backpacking holidays. It's great to have the freedom to travel from country to country as and when you like. For example, it's so easy to travel around Europe and go from one country to another and back again. If you ask me, it's the best way to travel as much as you want within a country easily and cheaply. I prefer to see as much of a place as I can, and since backpacking is so flexible, it allows me to do this. I tend to see more of a place because I walk a lot and I stay in hostels and bed and breakfast places, which tend to be away from the main tourist areas. And I also talk to the local people.
Speaker 3.
I love to go on a city break because I like to see places of interest such as famous buildings and museums. As far as I'm concerned, there is nothing nicer than staying in a nice hotel in the centre and visiting all the museums and art galleries and so on. It's so educational. I love visiting ancient ruins too. I'm not really bothered about the beach or the nightlife. I like to use the hotel facilities and learn about the culture and history of the place I am visiting.
Speaker 4.
My favourite type of holiday is a camping holiday. In my view, it's the best because I love to be close to nature. I love to be outdoors, and I like cycling and walking, so I simply pack my tent and set off. The great thing about camping is that you can camp on the beach one night and then in the mountains the next. I love the freedom it gives me.
Exercise 5, page 80. Speaker 1.
The reason I love to travel is that it broadens my knowledge of people, places and cultures. Every time I go abroad, I try to learn as much as I can about the local people, their language and their traditions and customs. I tend to stay away from the main tourist areas, and I try to use the local language as much as I can. I always take a phrase book, but sometimes I even have a few lessons before I go. I can speak some French, Spanish and Russian, and at the moment I'm learning a bit of Chinese.
Speaker 2.
The biggest benefit of going abroad for me is the sunshine. Where I live, we're lucky if we see 2 weeks of sunshine a year. The rest of the time it's cloudy or rainy or both. I like to visit hot countries and just relax in the sunshine. I like to sunbathe and come home with a great tan.
Speaker 3.
I'm very interested in history. So the benefit of travelling for me is the chance to visit ancient ruins and actually go to the places where great events of the past took place. For instance, I've been to Egypt and visited the Great Pyramid to see for myself this great wonder of the ancient world. I've also been to Rome to see the Colosseum and to China to see the Great Wall. Wherever I go, though, I spend most of my time either at ancient sites or in museums. History is my passion, and to be able to stand in the spot where great people of the past have stood sends a thrill of excitement through me.
Speaker 4.
I like to go to places where I can do unique activities that I just wouldn't have the chance to do at home. I would like to go skiing in the Swiss Alps, scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef, or swimming with the dolphins in Florida, and so on. For me, travelling is all about exposing myself to new things, whether it's a ride on a canal boat in Venice or a camel ride in Egypt. I haven't done all of these things yet, but I will.
Speaker 5.
The thing I love most about going on holiday is having someone else cook, clean and look after things while I relax and unwind. I travel first class and book myself into a luxury 5-star hotel, and then I indulge myself. My food is prepared for me, my room is kept clean and tidy, someone brings me a drink when I want it, and I pamper myself. I always stay in hotels that have a chauffeur service, so I can go shopping and have someone else carry the bags. It may sound selfish, but I work hard all year, so I think I deserve to live like a queen, even if it's just for 2 weeks.
Speaker 6.
I suppose I'm lucky because my wife and I are both retired now, so we can go on holiday whenever we like. That's a good thing for us because we both love cruising and prices vary a lot depending on the time of year. The reason we like it so much is because you get everything. Excellent accommodation and food, as well as fantastic entertainment. We even get lectures on board about the places we're going to visit, so we know exactly what to look out for when we go ashore.
Exercise 7, page 81.
Millhouse Farm is a family-run campsite. It is in an idyllic rural setting, just a short distance from many places of interest and local restaurants, pubs and shops. We offer visitors the opportunity to relax in the peace and quiet of the surrounding countryside and enjoy the scenery and attractions of this wonderful area. In addition to the pleasure of the great outdoors, campers at Millhouse Farm also benefit from a fishing lake, planted woodland, fields, a playground and children's play area, facilities for netball, volleyball and football. Indoors, we provide table tennis, table football and a pool table. We also provide tourist information brochures regarding what there is to see and do in the area. Our amenities are the best you can get. We provide hot showers free of charge in individual shower rooms, as well as in a separate bathroom for the disabled. We have a dishwashing and vegetable preparation area, as well as a laundry room with washing machines, dryers and ironing facilities. Our shop stocks an incredible range of food, drink, sweets, newspapers, magazines and toys.
Exercise 8, page 81.
Well, that's school over for a couple of weeks. It's holiday time. Are you going anywhere special this year, Danny?
I'm going to stay in the countryside, at a campsite.
A campsite? You mean to say you'll be in a tent, without a proper bed, cooking your own food, 1,000 tiny insects crawling all over you, and worst of all, no shops?
Relax, it's not like that at all, Sarah. The place I'm going to is run by one of my parents' friends. I've been a few times before. It's a great place with lots of restaurants, pubs and shops within walking distance. I'm going to have a great time, I can tell you. It's got a special play area for children with slides, swings and an adventure playground.
Aren't you a bit too old for all that? I thought you were into sports.
I am, but I'm going with my family, so we need something for my little brother to do. You know how lively he can be. Someone needs to watch him all the time.
You look after him a lot at home, don't you?
I help out when I can, but that's what a brother should do, right? Hopefully, though, Mum and Dad will be looking after Alex while I get a chance to show off some moves on the basketball court. There's also a football pitch. It's sometimes difficult to get a full team together, but we didn't let that stop us last year.
I went camping once and it rained every day, even though it was the middle of summer. Of course, I'd left my umbrella and my raincoat at home. We got soaked to the skin and there wasn't anywhere for the things to dry. I was walking around in damp socks for ages.
They've thought of everything at this place. There's a laundry room with washers and dryers, and if you want to look your very best, there are also facilities to iron your clothes.
Iron my clothes on holiday? You must be joking. When I go on holiday, I want everything I have at home, and more. I want sunbathing, good food, great friends, and, above all, huge shops. I don't want to do any cleaning, ironing, or cooking, that's for sure. I don't do it at home, so I certainly don't want to do it on holiday.
Well, this place might not have the shopping centre you're looking for, but it does have all the basics. There's a camp shop that sells a wide range of food if you want to do your own cooking. If you want something to read, it has all the latest newspapers and magazines, and it even has a few toys to keep the kids happy. Look, Sarah, I know you like the city, but a holiday is not all about spending money. What about the fresh air?
You could be right. Some fresh air would be a welcome break from all the pollution in the city.
You know what the best thing about the campsite is? In the very middle, it has one of the most beautiful lakes I've ever seen. You can hire a boat, row out to the middle of the lake, and just lie there under the sun, floating wherever the water takes you. It's so relaxing, and the only thing to bother you is the sound of the ducks.
Now that sounds good.
Exercise 9, page 81.
Tonight we have Jamie Fletcher, a travel writer, who is here to talk about his stay in an ice hotel. Jamie, an ice hotel seems very odd indeed. What made you go there?
The simple answer is that my editor sent me there. But it's also the nature of the job, I suppose. Nobody wants to read about how I spent 2 weeks on the beach. That'd be boring. Which is why I don't do that kind of writing. What the readers want is the weird and the wonderful. And the ice hotel certainly fits that bill.
Can you tell us a little about how ice hotels started?
It all started back in 1990, when a French artist held an exhibition in a sort of large igloo, a kind of shelter made of blocks of snow, in a place called Kiruna, way up in the north of Sweden inside the Arctic Circle. Apparently one night, some of the visitors decided to sleep in the exhibition hall, and it seems they enjoyed the experience. The first ice hotel opened soon after, and it has been rebuilt ever since.
Did you say rebuilt?
Don't get worried. It doesn't mean it's poorly constructed and in need of constant repair. The roof isn't going to fall on your head. In the spring, the ice melts as the weather gets warmer, and by the middle of summer there is nothing left of the old hotel, and a new one has to be created out of new ice.
Having to rebuild a hotel every year sounds like a lot of hard work.
It is, but it also has its benefits. The owners can easily change the number of rooms in the hotel. That's one reason why visitors are told to book well in advance. If the owners know how many guests they'll have, then they know how many rooms to build. In other hotels, the room is cleaned before you arrive. Here, the room is literally built just for you.
What about the furniture? Is that made of ice too?
Just about everything in the hotel is made of ice, and in some hotels, even the plates and glasses are ice. Obviously, they won't serve you a hot meal on an ice plate. You'll be served cold food. You have to remember that the idea is not that you would spend a long time in these places. Most people only stay for 1 or 2 nights, usually 1. If you want to stay longer, there are chalets available that are heated to a comfortable temperature. You can also get a hot meal in nearby restaurants to warm you up.
I can't help thinking that this place is a little too cold for me.
It's not as cold as you might think. Even when the temperature outside is -30, the temperature inside rarely falls below -3 degrees. The air is very dry, despite all that ice, so it's not quite as bad as you would imagine. Of course, guests are told to bring warm clothes, but the hotels will provide them for people if necessary. And on the plus side, the beds are actually very warm, so a good night's sleep is no problem whatsoever.
It all sounds very interesting, but I'm not too sure that you've convinced me to go.
It is expensive and it is a long journey for such a short break. Look, this is not the sort of place you would take the family to for a 2-week summer break. But if you're looking for a holiday with a difference, I'm sure you'll find the Ice Hotel an unforgettable experience. Unit 3.8 Exercise 3, page 82.
If somebody ever offered me a choice between a road trip and a cruise, I guess I'd probably opt for the cruise. I mean, you can visit different places on both a road trip and a cruise, but it seems to me you would see a broader selection of sights on a cruise. Also, you travel overland on a road trip, whereas on a cruise you travel by sea. I love the sea. It's just so calming. On the other hand, I'm not so keen on driving. If the truth be told, both types of holidays are suitable for families because they both offer lots of activities to keep kids amused. I believe young people would like to go on a road trip rather than a cruise because I think they feel a greater sense of freedom. They can go where they want, when they want. Also, a cruise is very luxurious and expensive while a road trip is not. Many younger people simply cannot afford a cruise. I think the biggest advantage of a cruise is that entertainment is provided on a cruise, but you have to find your own on a road trip.
Exercise 4B, page 82.
In picture A, I can see an archaeological site. It might be a temple. And in picture B, I can see a very luxurious hotel with a pool. A good reason why people might go to the place in picture A is out of a sense of curiosity about the past. Another reason would be that maybe they are people who want to gain a better understanding of ancient culture, or perhaps they simply want to admire the beauty of the sights. People who visit these types of places usually have a strong interest in history and architecture. On the other hand, people might go to a place like the one in picture B because they like relaxing and enjoy the feeling of luxury that staying in a resort provides. They might also like seeing new places and meeting new people.
Exercise 5, page 83. Speaker 1.
As far as I'm concerned, young people prefer different types of holidays to older people because they like to do different things. Young people like to do things such as listen to music and dance, so they would prefer a resort with lively nightlife, whereas older people would not. Apart from that, young people tend to be more active than older people, so they prefer activity holidays.
Speaker 2.
I think young people like to have fun. They like to be adventurous. They don't care as much about museums and famous buildings as older people do.
Speaker 3.
Older people have more money than younger people, so they can afford to go on cruises and stay at luxurious hotels. They are retired and have more leisure time to go on holiday. They also have a broader knowledge of the world.
Exercise 6, page 83. Speaker 1.
As far as I'm concerned, young people prefer different types of holidays to older people because they like to do different things. Young people like to do things such as listen to music and dance, so they would prefer a resort with lively nightlife, whereas older people would not. Apart from that, young people tend to be more active than older people, so they prefer activity holidays.
Exercise 8B, page 83.
I don't think that picture A would be a good choice for the Smiths, because I'm sure it would be very expensive, and they are on a tight budget.
I agree. To my mind, I don't think picture C would be a very good choice either. I mean, they would be close to nature, but it does look like a rather isolated destination, and the children might get bored.
I think you're right. I don't think picture D would be suitable for the same reasons. It is close to nature, and the family could go swimming, but I really don't think it's the best choice.
You're right. Picture B would be the best for the Smiths. It would be a cheap holiday as they are accommodated in tents and they could do their own cooking.
True. In addition, they would be close to nature and they could be able to meet lots of people who'd probably enjoy doing the same things as the Smiths.
Unit 3.12. Exercise 3, page 90.
Heritage Sites. Agra, India. Agra is a medieval city on the banks of the river Yamuna and is famous for having once been the capital of the Mughal Empire. It has 3 World Heritage Sites from the Mughal era. The most important of these is the Taj Mahal, which is not only a World Heritage Site, but is also one of the new 7 wonders of the world. The Taj Mahal is a masterpiece of symmetry, and when viewed from a distance appears to float in the air. It was originally built as a mausoleum for the favourite wife of one of the Mughal emperors. The other major sites of interest are the red sandstone Agra Fort and the Fatehpur Sikri, a city built on the outskirts of Agra in the form of a Mughal military camp. Agra also has a long tradition as a centre of learning and literature. Yaroslavl, Russia. Established at the beginning of the 11th century, the historical centre of this city is a World Heritage Site. In the 17th century, it was Russia's second largest city, and during the Polish occupation of Moscow, it acted as the country's capital. Yaroslavl has many Orthodox shrines and monasteries located along the banks of the Volga River. The oldest building in Yaroslavl is the Transfiguration of the Saviour Monastery, parts of which date back to the 12th century. Yaroslavl is renowned for its 17th century churches built of red brick with bright tiled exteriors, and for having some of the most impressive frescoes of the Golden Ring churches. Yaroslavl can also lay claim to having the oldest theatre in Russia. The Volkov Theatre was the first professional public theatre in the country and is still in use to this day. Vladimir, Russia. Vladimir, although traditionally accepted as having been established as a city in the early 12th century, has been inhabited for approximately 25,000 years. It was one of the medieval capitals of Russia, and 3 of its buildings are World Heritage Sites. From the middle of the 12th to the early 13th century, Vladimir enjoyed immense growth and prosperity, which lasted until the Mongol invasion of Russia. After the Mongols, Vladimir never fully regained its former importance and went into decline. Today, the city is a significant tourist centre, with many remarkable examples of pre-Mongol Russian architecture. The World Heritage buildings in the city include the magnificent 5-domed Assumption Cathedral, the Cathedral of St. Demetrius, and the splendid Golden Gate. Bath, England. The city of Bath, a World Heritage Site, was originally founded by the Romans, who built baths and a temple around the natural hot springs that occur in this part of the Avon Valley. But it was in the 18th century that Bath became one of the most fashionable places in England, as the aristocracy and the wealthy gathered there to enjoy the health benefits of the hot springs and the many theatres and other places of entertainment. The best preserved Roman site in the city is the Roman Baths Complex, which features the Sacred Spring, the Roman Temple, and the Roman Bathhouse. Despite the extensive damage the city sustained from bombing in World War II, Bath also has many fine examples of Georgian architecture in the Palladian Revival style. One of the finest examples is the Circus, which is believed to have been inspired by the Colosseum in Rome.
Unit 3.13. Exercise 6, page 93.
Lost Horizon. Conway never exactly remembered how he and the others arrived at the monastery, or how they were greeted and led into the grounds. The thin air was dreamlike and matched the light blue of the sky. With every breath and every glance, he took in a deep, relaxing feeling that made him unaware of Malison's uneasiness, Barnard's witty comments, and Miss Brinklow, who looked like a lady well prepared for the worst. He just about remembered being surprised at finding the inside of the monastery spacious, well-warmed, and quite clean. There was no time to do more than notice these qualities, for the Chinese had left his hooded chair and was already leading the way through the different rooms. He was quite pleasant now.
I must apologize,
he said,
for leaving you to yourselves on the way. But the truth is, journeys of that kind don't suit me, and I have to take care of myself. I hope you are not too tired.
We managed,
replied Conway with a tight smile.
Excellent. And now if you will come with me, I will show you to your rooms. No doubt you would like baths. Our accommodation is simple, but comfortable, I hope.
At this point, Barnard, who was still affected by shortness of breath, chuckled.
Well,
he gasped,
I can't say I like your climate yet. The air seems to stick on my chest a bit. But you've certainly got a fine view out of your front windows. Do we all have to line up for the bathroom, or is this an American hotel?
I think you will find everything quite satisfactory, Mr. Barnard.
Miss Brinklow nodded.
I should hope so, indeed.
And afterwards,
continued the Chinese,
I should be greatly honored if you will all join me at dinner.
Conway replied politely. Only Mallinson had given no sign of his attitude in the face of these kind offers. Like Barnard, he had been suffering from breathing problems. But now, with an effort, he found breath to exclaim,
And afterwards, also, if you don't mind, we'll make our plans for getting away. The sooner the better, so far as I'm concerned.
So you see,
Chang was saying,
we are less barbarian than you expected.
Conway, later that evening, was not willing to argue. He was enjoying that pleasant feeling of his body being relaxed, but his mind being awake, which seemed to him, of all feelings, the most truly civilized. So far, Shangri-La had been all that he could have wished, certainly more than he could ever have expected. It was not so strange for a Tibetan monastery to have a system of central heating, but that it should combine the baths and cleaning facilities from the western part of the world with tradition from the eastern world struck him as amazing and rare. The bath, for instance, in which he had recently bathed, had been of a light green pottery from America, yet the native servant had washed him in a Chinese way of cleaning his ears and nostrils and under his lower eyelids. He had wondered at the time if, and how, his three companions were receiving similar treatment. Conway had lived for nearly 10 years in China, not wholly in the bigger cities, and he counted it, all things considered, the happiest part of his life. He liked the Chinese and felt at home with Chinese ways. He really liked Chinese cooking with its subtle undertones of taste, and his first meal at Shangri-La had been familiar.
Unit 3.14 Exercise 3, page 94.
Ecotourism, the future of holidays. What is ecotourism? Tourism brings income and employment, but tourists disturb the environment and need services and accommodation, food, transport, and waste disposal, which can destroy the qualities of an area that attracted tourists in the first place. Activities such as driving and water sports can cause problems, especially when too many people decide to do the same thing in the same place. Ecotourism is about enjoying your holiday destination without spoiling it. The demand for ecotourism is increasing, and there are now many holiday companies that work with local people to protect their environment. As an ecotourist, you can help by booking your holiday with a responsible company and showing respect for local customs when you arrive. Stay on paths when you're exploring the area and avoid getting too close to the local wildlife. Places that make money for locals have a better chance of being protected, so remember to visit local restaurants and markets during your holiday. In this way, you can discover new places and learn about different cultures while helping to protect the world's disappearing ecosystems.
Module 3. Focus on RNE. Listening Part 3. Page 98.
Well, here we are. This is the area where I grew up, and I have many happy memories of what it was like playing in the fields that started at the back of the houses. That was our house over there, by the way. Anyway, the farm, it was only a small farm really, and it's funny to think that it was inside the city boundary with houses all around it. I think Mr. Jones, the farmer, kept only 20 cows at most, so it's hard to imagine how he made a living from it. I suppose he must have had more land elsewhere, but we never thought about that. To us, it was just the farm with 4 fields, and that's what we called them. First field, second field, and so on. Between first field and the second field, there was a spring with beautiful clean water bubbling out the ground. I used to love playing there. I remember there were always small shrimps in the water and insects running around. I used to wonder where those little animals in the water could possibly have come from. The spring was surrounded by willow trees, which kept it shady and cool in the summer, and as long as we let some water flow downstream, Mr. Jones didn't mind if we made a dam to create a large pool we could paddle in. He got annoyed once because we had got so good at building the dams that we almost stopped the flow of water completely. He destroyed that one and explained how important the water was to his animals and the wild plants that grew along the banks of the stream, and so after that, we always made sure that the water could pass through the dam once we had filled the pool to the size we wanted. I remember we found 2 or 3 metal pipes which we put in the wall of the dam for the water to flow through. It looked very professional. What else can I tell you? There used to be an old tree that I liked to climb right here, but it's gone now, which is a pity. I'm glad that most of the bigger trees are still here, but the bumpy tree, as I called it, has been cut down. I don't know what kind of tree it was, but it wasn't very big, and the trunk wasn't smooth like most trees. It was covered in these strange bumps, and that is what made it easy to climb, of course. I could get about 2 meters above the ground, quite a safe height really, and sit there, listening to the birds and the insects. Sometimes I used to sit in that tree for what seemed like hours, just watching the world go by and imagining that nobody could see me. Of course, I'm sure my mother knew where I was all the time, because you could see the tree clearly from our kitchen window, but she never said anything. Now that I think about it, we didn't go into the other 2 fields nearly as often as the 2 I've just described to you. I suppose that was partly because they were further away, but they were also a lot more ordinary than first field and second field. Third field and fourth field were flatter, and they got a lot muddier when it rained. I think that's really what kept us out of them. They were bigger fields, and Mr. Jones kept his cows there most of the time, and they made the mud worse, as you can imagine. We didn't mind the cows, and they didn't mind us most of the time, but we were careful to keep away from them when they had young calves with them. The mothers can get quite aggressive at such times. Yes, it's a shame that the old farmer's gone. Actually, we all knew that it was going to be turned into a golf course one day,